Good evening, everybody. Hello, welcome in. Welcome, good to see you. Hello. Welcome in. Happy Monday, everybody. We made it through Monday, so that's all right. Oh my goodness. Yes, it's been a day. Hello, good to see you. Hello, Heather, good to see you. Robin, hello, good evening. Good evening. Let's see, Ria, also beloved, good to see you. Welcome in, everyone. Hello. Well, welcome. Hello, Navy Vet, good to see you as well. So tonight, wow, first of all, let's talk about the day, right? We do have an order from Judge Juan Merchan regarding our 10th contempt situation, everybody. So that has been filed officially. So there's that. You've been picking a guitar. Yes, actually, yes. I have guitar plans tonight. So I just have my regular nails tonight, everybody. Sorry about that, but guitar plans call. So it's already been a week. I know. It certainly seems that way. Oh my goodness. We had a contempt hearing, then we had some testimony today. So it's been oh, thank you, Lily. Good to see you. It's been a day for sure. Yes. Well, finally the weather in my area has changed enough so I can go outside with my guitar. So I'm very excited about that. Yay. Receiver of your first gift. Oh, well, I appreciate that, Lily. That's very sweet of you. It's very, very kind. Yes, acoustic guitar. Yes, I do enjoy. Just a little, old-fashioned, playing. It's enjoyable. I enjoy. I look forward to hearing your live so much. I set an alarm. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, Lois, that's so sweet. Oh my goodness, that's so kind of you. Yes, I do try to definitely come on, get as much information out there for everyone. Allowing Trump to reply to his motion to delay. True. I did see that, Anthony, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Florida at this point. I think she's just allowing anybody to file anything whenever they want and as much as they want at this point. Teacher Appreciation Week. Yes. So, yeah, the Florida situation, yikes. Teacher Appreciation Week. Yes. So, yeah, the Florida situation, yikes. Thanks, Kristen. Yes, well, it's starting to definitely feel more springy here in my area. So, I'm at this point where in the morning sometimes you have to wear a coat, but it gets nicer and nicer. So, really got Teacher of the Year. Oh, congratulations. Oh, good for her. Okay, sent a couple videos. Excellent. Love it. I'm in Florida. We're okay. Don't stress. Excellent, Lexi. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I really do. I do appreciate it. I try to keep up on everything. We just really don't have much movement in our other cases. I think once that Supreme Court case comes down, we will definitely see that kind of hit the ground running for sure. So that'll definitely be quick. I have no doubt. Judge Chutkin will be like, let's get her done. So we just got to kind of wait for those decisions to come in. Almost summer. I know. I'm so excited. I'm very excited. Anytime I can go outside with my guitar, I know summer's on the way. So very exciting. Happy to see that finally. But welcome in, everybody. Welcome. Happy Monday. Good to see everybody. And, Princess, oh dear, I'm not sure about that, but so I had originally, everyone, I had posted that I was going to read through Keith Davidson's testimony, but just about maybe an hour and a half, 90 minutes ago, I was able to pull Hope Hicks's testimony. And so I posted, which people would like. And overwhelmingly, everyone has voted to hear Miss Hope Hicks tonight. So I think we will get through that. Her testimony is just like every page is interesting, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. She has her direct examination that goes on for quite a bit. I hope we can get through it. We'll have to see. And then we have a brief cross, and then we are done. So she definitely has quite a bit to say here. Quite a tan. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I do have sunscreen on, everyone. I always have sunscreen on. So in these kinds of months when the curtains come open. So trust your opinion. Yes. Well, I think she's very interesting. Actually, I think they do look a little bit tanner. I've got the Woe Glow going. So maybe it's the Woe Glow. It's tanned up a little bit. Highly recommend. Use your sunscreen on your hands, everybody. Don't forget your hands. That's important. Very important. So my cats are playing around in their cat tunnels. So if you hear some scooting around, that will be my cat. So sorry about that. But they're off playing tonight. So, but welcome in, everyone. I do have her testimony. I will be going through it. Again, I feel like, hello, H. Titus, good to see you. I do feel like pretty much everything she has to say is very useful, very helpful for us. So I think that will be good for us. Yes, the kitty interruptions. I don't know. Atticus, my small little kitten, he's growing up, and I don't know. He just doesn't. He's extra chunky and squishy, but he's just not so little anymore. So, hello, Mary. Hello. Now, come on. There they go. Hello, Erin. Hello. Yes, I don't know. I had chickens when I was little, and we didn't get along. So I feel like it was more my fault than their fault. But yeah, yes, Atticus is out. All right. They're calming down a little bit, so that's good to see. But oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so tonight I just have my regular nails on. I've got some guitar appointments after the live tonight. I've got plans, so I didn't want to put my nails on and then just take them off again. So I just have my regular nails on for tonight. You'll have to forgive me for that, but the roosters, yes, I agree. Well, I don't know. I feel like, sea legs, oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like we had some miscommunications, myself and the chickens. So, oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Yes, guitar plans tonight, everyone. The weather's finally gotten nice enough, and I always say, if it's nice enough, take your guitar outside, everyone. So, if you can, how often do you change your nails? I just change them whenever I feel like it. So, I love fried chicken. Oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. So I do have some sunscreen on, so they may be looking they look, I think, a little bit more tan, my hands do, in the camera. So very interesting here. Yes, I was able to get a little bit of sun recently, so very thankful for that. Any update on the foxes? Yes, we do have a fox family. We've not seen the kits. We've seen the parents, but we've not seen the kits. So they are running around and hanging out, having a lot of fun. So, Northern Michigan. Well, hello. Well, welcome in, everybody. I think we've hit the time now where I can go ahead and start diving in here with the testimony. Now, I do have my fun new pen I am going to use tonight. I don't have a label on it. I got it from a local fun shop here, but this is just a really fun pen. I had to use it tonight. So, Arkansas. Well, hello. Good to see you. So this is my fun little pen in case anyone's interested. Someone was asking about it the other day. And it's just a magnifying glass, and it's got kind of a clock to it. This is not sponsored, just picked it up at a little shop I happen to be in. So for those of you who were wondering, found it on Amazon. Okay, great. Yes. So it's just really fun. And, for anyone who needs a magnifying glass, right? So I say go for it. Oregon. Oh, I love it. Flagstaff. Nice. So at the top, everyone, just to remind you, we do have the person who is being questioned. So we have Miss Hope Hicks here, and then we have the direct and the attorney for the direct, and we have a second attorney. We have had just one attorney previously, but now we've got the next defense counsel, or next government attorney here, or a New York attorney coming in to ask her questions here. So I thought that was very interesting. Also at the very top, you can see the page number that I'm on. So in case you'd like to pull these up online yourself, they are available through the New York Battle Creek, Michigan. Okay, excellent, excellent. If you do want to pull these up online, they are available. This particular transcript just became available about an hour and a half ago, so it is up and ready now for anyone who is interested. So, North San Francisco. Oh my gosh, Oregon. Oh, I've got to get out there sometime. It looks so lovely. That's one place I haven't been, but hope to. So I will go ahead and dive in. And just as a friendly reminder, any of our court staff are all in yellow. Pink is for the court itself. So Judge Mershon. Blue is for, this is incorrectly labeled, but blue is for our state, so for the government here. And then I've got just this random purple color that I picked out from Ms. Hicks. I am getting low on my color options when it comes to highlighters here. So really great place in Oregon. Yes, I'd love to go sometime. I'd absolutely love to go. So as we get through this, we have, of course, the state starting with the direct exam, and that will go on for quite a while. And then we do flip over to cross-examination, which does not go on for very long. So with that, everyone, I will go ahead and get started. Rice Krispie treats, excellent. We love it. We love it. All right, so let's get started, everyone. And I will leave comments on tonight for my moderators. I think you all will be okay. But let me know if you need me to turn comments off if it does become overwhelming. And just as a friendly reminder to all the moderators, please screenshot any threats that we get and make sure to send them to me as per usual. So we'll appreciate that. So here we go, everyone. Let's get started. Court officer, remain standing, raise your right hand, face the clerk. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And the witness says, I do. And Hope Charlotte Hicks, called as a witness on behalf of the people, being first duly sworn by the clerk of court, was examined and testifies as follows. The clerk, thank you. State your full name, spell your last name. My name is Hope Charlotte Hicks, and my last name is spelled Hicks. Give your county of residence, Washington, D.C. Good morning, Miss Hicks. You may inquire. Thank you, Your Honor. Direct examination by Mr. Coliangolo. I apologize. I'm terrible with names. Good morning, Miss Hicks. Will you please describe your educational background? Sure. I have a BA in English from Southern Methodist University, and that's it. Very brief. Please describe your work history after you finished college. After college, I started working in different PR and marketing jobs. The first notable one was with a firm called Hicks Strategies, Hiltzik, and that was a PR firm that specializes in crisis communications and working with well-known individuals. After that, while I was working there, I met Ivanka Trump and started to help with public relations surrounding her personal brand. And after a little bit of time, I started to work with the Trump family on some of the Trump hospitality initiatives. And I was enjoying it so much that I was offered a position to work with the Trump family on some of the Trump hospitality initiatives. And I was enjoying it so much that I was offered a position at the Trump Organization and dubbed it as an opportunity to join the company full-time. Whereupon the principal court reporter was relieved and the next court reporter came in. When did you begin to work at the Trump Organization full-time? In October of 2014. And I'm not sure you mentioned what year you received your undergraduate degree. What year was that? I graduated from college in 2010. You began working at the Trump Organization about 4 years after you finished college? That's right. And at some point after beginning to work at the Trump Organization, did you start working for the Trump campaign? Yes. Shortly after I joined the Trump Organization, Mr. Trump said that he would be exploring a run for president, and we began doing that in January of 2015. And then just a few months later, in March of 2015, he formed a formal exploratory committee and announced he was running as a candidate for president in June of 2015. What do you currently do for work? I am a communications consultant, so I have my own company. I do what I've always done, which is give advice to individuals or companies looking for strategic communications advice.
Are you here today in response to a subpoena from the district attorney's office?
I am.
Are you represented by counsel here today?
I am.
Who is paying for your lawyer?
I am.
In your current role as consultant, is the defendant Donald Trump a client?
He's not.
Do you have any current professional relationship with Mr. Trump?
I don't.
When is the last time you were in communication with Mr. Trump?
Sometime in the summer, fall of 2022.
2022?
Yes.
Please move a little bit forward to the microphone so we can all hear you.
Sorry.
Now, you mentioned that you began working at the Trump Organization in October of 2014, is that right?
Yes.
What was your role at the Trump Organization?
I was the director of communications.
What were some of the tasks and responsibilities you held as director of communications at the Trump Organization?
Coordinated all of the public relations materials, marketing collateral for real estate, hospitality, and entertainment business, which at the time were thriving. This is very deep now, and I can hear on the microphone. I apologize. It's going to take a second to get used to it. Worked a lot of events, different initiatives to help publicize the various properties, the golf courses, and just the growth of the business, as well as the executives of the company, primarily Mr. Trump, Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric.
In your job as director of communications at the Trump Organization, did you have occasion to meet with Donald Trump?
I did.
About how often did you meet with him?
Maybe once a week at first, usually observing, colleagues working with him. And then as we transitioned just a few months later into the political work, I met with him more regularly.
As your experience at the Trump Organization grew and you began working on both Trump Organization matters and campaign matters, eventually, how often did you come to meet with him in a typical day?
I probably met with him every day.
And were those scheduled meetings, unscheduled meetings, or both?
Both.
Were you ever called into Mr. Trump's office when he was meeting with other people?
Yes.
Give us an example of how that might come about.
He's just the kind of person, he's very good multitasker and a very hard worker. He is always doing many things at once. He might be having a conversation with someone and it will remind him to follow up on something else. He'll want to share something with that group that he's meeting with and then want to provide them with, maybe if it's a political meeting, he wants to provide them with poll numbers. If it's a real estate meeting, he'll want to provide them with any positive press surrounding the property, the sales of the property, the value of the property, things like that.
In this period of time in 2015, was it unusual for you to be in and out of his office during other meetings?
No.
In your role as Director of Communications, did you also speak to Mr. Trump by phone?
Yes.
About how often did you speak to him by phone?
Well, again, once the campaign started, my role was a little bit different. If we're talking rather do it by title, we will do it by date, if that works for you. Beginning January of 2015, I started to speak with him more regularly. I would say about June of 2015, I spoke with him on the phone every day if we weren't able to communicate in person.
How did you reach him by phone when you spoke to him?
I would usually call the office and be connected, but he had a cell phone or a home phone number as well.
Focusing on your role as Director of Communications, who did you report to at the Trump Organization?
Everybody that works there, in some sense, reports to Mr. Trump. It's a very big and successful company, but it's really run like a small family business in certain ways. And Mr. Trump and Don and Eric and Ivanka were very involved in the business, and so people reported to the 4 family members.
You mentioned a few names there. I want to make sure the record's clear who they are. Thanks, John. You mentioned Don, Eric, and Ivanka. Can you say who they are?
They're Mr. Trump's children.
Is that Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka?
Yes.
Sorry, everyone. I need a tea break. They also worked at the Trump Organization when you worked there?
Yes.
Are you familiar with someone named Keith Schiller?
Yes.
Who is Mr. Schiller?
Keith was Mr. Trump's bodyguard.
How do you know Mr. Schiller?
He attended events with us and really served as sort of a security liaison for Mr. Trump at big public events and just generally helping to keep him safe.
Through your work, did you have occasion to observe the kind of relationship that Mr. Schiller had with Mr. Trump?
Yes.
How would you describe that relationship?
Close.
Are you familiar with someone named Rona Graff?
Yes.
Who is Rona Graff?
Rona was Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
How do you know her?
I worked with her during my time at the Trump organization.
As Mr. Trump's executive assistant, what did her role involve?
She was crucial to how everything ran on the 26th floor. She had a lot of institutional knowledge about different projects and Mr. Trump's business relationships, his net worth, his likes, his dislikes in terms of scheduling. And she also was helpful with his media engagements up to that point. She would help facilitate those media engagements for him.
You mentioned something about the 26th floor. Can you tell the jury what you mean by that?
The floor in Trump Tower where Mr. Trump's office and Rona's office was as well.
And in addition to what you just said, did you have occasion to observe Ms. Graff's relationship with Mr. Trump?
Yes.
How would you describe that relationship?
One of mutual respect.
Are you familiar with someone named Alan Wesselberg?
Yes.
Who is Mr. Wesselberg?
Alan was the CFO of the Trump Organization.
And by CFO, do you mean Chief Financial Officer?
Yes.
How do you know him?
I worked with him during my time there.
Can you describe a little bit what kind of work-related interactions you had with Mr. Wesselberg?
Sure. Anything that had to do with finance, Alan was involved. You know, during this time while we were starting to work on the campaign, he was helpful in doing things like the personal financial disclosure that was required. He was helpful, you know. Mr. Trump self-financed his campaign. He would loan the company money, and Mr. Wesselberg, Alan, was helpful in the process in making sure that we had an accurate description of that for the press.
You mentioned a required financial disclosure in that answer. Can you say a little bit more what you understood that to be?
I don't really remember that much about it, just a requirement of candidates to file a financial disclosure, share their assets, their worth, I guess. I can't remember exactly, but I know that was something we did. We put out a press release in addition to the filing itself, and Alan was helpful with that.
Did you have occasion through your work with Mr. Wesselberg to observe his relationship with Mr. Trump?
Yes.
How would you describe that relationship?
So, mutual respect. He had been an employee at the Trump Organization for a long time. And so, you know, like Rona, he had a lot of institutional knowledge. He was a trusted person there.
Did Wesselberg report directly to Mr. Trump?
Yes.
Are you familiar with someone named Michael Cohen?
Yes.
Did Michael Cohen work for the Trump Organization when you began working there?
Yes.
And that was around October of 2014?
Yes.
Had you met Mr. Cohen before you began working at the Trump Organization?
I believe so. You know, there was about a 6 or 8 month period where I was working at a different PR firm on hotels and golf related projects for the Trump Organization. I believe we met during that time.
What was Mr. Cohen's role at the Trump Organization?
He was an attorney.
Do you know what kind of work he did?
Not specifically, other than I know he was involved in a couple of the license deals for some of the hotel projects and maybe some of the entertainment pieces as well, like the Miss Universe pageant.
You mentioned a minute ago that shortly after you started working at the Trump Organization, you began to work for Mr. Trump's campaign for president. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you say a little bit more about how that came about?
Yes. So, Mr. Trump, one day he said, "We're going to Iowa," and I don't really know why, but after that first trip to Iowa, you know, obviously it was clear he was exploring a potential political run. And we started to travel regularly over the next couple of weeks and months to New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Washington. He would give speeches, meet with voters, attend different panels and submit discussions, media interviews, etc. He eventually made the decision to formalize that with an exploratory committee at first, and then announced he was going to run for president in June.
Is that June of 2015?
Yes.
Do you remember when when that initial Iowa trip was?
Sometime in January of 2015.
Did there come a time that you were offered an official role in the campaign?
Yes, at some point, I think it was sometime around that first trip. Mr. Trump, I think he might have been joking, but he said I was going to be the campaign press secretary. I had no experience and worked at the company, not on the campaign, so I didn't take it very seriously. But eventually, I just started spending so much time working on the campaign that I became a member of the campaign team, and I was the press secretary.
Tell us a little bit about what your duties were as the press secretary for the campaign.
Sure. So, just helping communicate the campaign message, a lot of work around press release and planning events, a lot of the media interviews, and just kind of being a liaison for all of those different things and helping to facilitate anything that was external facing for the campaign.
In addition to external communications, were there any internal communications as well?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, can you describe for the jury in a little bit more detail what your interactions with the press and other campaign staff involved?
Like I said, just trying to get the message out. A lot of incoming questions about Mr. Trump, about his candidacy, where we were going to be and when, what we were speaking about, a lot of questions about his business. It was kind of a constant flow of incoming questions. So I managed all of those and tried to respond to everybody in a timely manner with accurate information. But yeah, it was a big part of it.
Was there also a communication team for the campaign?
At that point, no, it was just me and Mr. Trump, who is better than anybody at communications and branding.
Eventually, did the campaign and communication staff add communication staff?
Later, in the general election, we did have a larger staff, yes.
Did your role involve managing or leading that communication staff?
I wasn't really managing them because I was on the road every day. So I wasn't in the office sort of looking after the rest of the group. But, definitely giving guidance where I could, daily team phone calls and other things. We worked together as a team, and there were some other people on board at that point that could stay in the office each day and look after the team.
In your role as press secretary, did you consider it important to stay informed about what other political figures were saying about Mr. Trump's candidacy?
Yes, any news that was relevant to the campaign was consumed regularly.
And are you familiar with the term talking points? Is that a term that's used in the campaign context?
Yes.
What are talking points?
They're typically just a summary of messages in maybe a bullet point format. Maybe they're for people to remember, kind of just like you want to make sure everybody's on the same page about something here. The talking points about a certain topic. If you can work these into your conversations or your media interview on your next event, here they are. So they would change quite frequently. There were some, more general points, but we would update them daily based on what Mr. Trump was doing, what kind of policy speeches he was giving, and what kind of campaign speech he was giving.
Did you prepare or coordinate the coordination of those talking points?
Sometimes, yes.
You may already have answered this in your earlier discussion. Who did you report to as press secretary in the campaign?
I reported to Mr. Trump.
And how frequently during the campaign period in 2015 did you speak with Mr. Trump as part of your role as the press secretary?
Every day.
Did you speak by telephone?
Yes.
And in person?
Yes.
In your experience, how involved was Mr. Trump in the press aspects of his campaign?
He was very involved.
Did he weigh in on media responses?
He did.
And who on the campaign was responsible for the overall messaging strategy?
I would say that Mr. Trump was responsible. He knew what he wanted to say and how he wanted to say it, and we were all just following his lead. So, I think that he deserves the credit for, the different messages that the campaign focused on in terms of the agenda that he put forth.
Was Mr. Trump focused on press coverage of the campaign?
Yes.
And in your role as press secretary, did you often make statements on behalf of the Trump campaign?
I did.
Did you check with Mr. Trump before making statements on behalf of the campaign?
Yes.
Did you check with him before making statements about him in particular?
Absolutely.
Did you travel with Mr. Trump during the campaign?
Yes.
How often?
Almost every day.
Who else traveled with you and Mr. Trump during the campaign?
A small group of staffers.
Are there any particular staff members or types of staff people that traveled regularly?
Yes. You want me to name names?
Just give us a general job function.
Someone that output social media, someone that helped a little bit with speech writing, and I'm trying to think. There was a very small group of us. It depends where we were going. Maybe they would have someone, that there was more on the fundraising end of things. The core staff was very limited though.
Did Keith Schiller travel with Mr. Trump during the campaign?
Yes.
If someone wanted to reach Mr. Trump while he was traveling with the campaign, do you have an understanding of who they would contact?
Yeah, Mr. Trump was reachable when he wasn't doing rallies and interviews. He had a phone that he could be reached, but Keith was also helpful in facilitating phone calls.
And by Keith, you're referring to Keith Schiller?
Yes.
Did you send text messages in connection with the campaign?
Yes.
And receive text messages too?
Yes.
What phone did you use to send and receive text messages for the campaign?
The phone number?
Well, why don't you tell the jury? Did you use a personal phone or a campaign phone?
It was my personal phone.
And without giving me anything other than the last 4 digits, can you let us know the last 4 digits of the phone number?
0226.
Did you also make phone calls in connection with the campaign?
Yes.
Did you receive phone calls as well?
Yes.
Did you use your personal number for those campaign-related phone calls?
Yes.
And did you also send emails in connection with the campaign?
Yes.
Did you have a campaign email address?
Yes.
What was the campaign email address you used?
I think it was hhhicks@donaldtrump.com.
What was the campaign email domain?
At
@donaldtrump.com?
I believe so, yeah.
Do you know someone named David Pecker?
Yes.
How do you know Mr. Pecker?
I know him as the publisher of American Media. It's a group of publications, and the editor of the National Enquirer. I had been introduced to him in a previous job at Hicks Strategies. I had met with him to talk about different opportunities throughout his American Media group for clients, and then I reconnected with him at some point as he was a friend of Mr. Trump's.
So you were aware that Mr. Pecker and Mr. Trump had a relationship?
I knew they were friends, yes.
And how did you become aware of that relationship? How did you become aware that they were friends?
I don't recall specifically, but at some point I realized that.
You testified earlier that as part of your job, you were sometimes in and out of Mr. Trump's office when he was having other meetings, is that right?
Yes.
Were you ever in and out of his office when Mr. Pecker was meeting with Mr. Trump in Trump Tower?
I don't have any recollection of that, but it's certainly possible.
You have seen him in Trump Tower before, Mr. Pecker?
Yes.
During the campaign, were you ever present for any phone calls between Mr. Trump and Mr. Pecker?
Yes.
Can you describe those phone calls?
One of them was, I think, shortly after the National Enquirer published a piece about Ben Carson, and I just overheard the conversation between Mr. Trump and Mr. Pecker, who was on the speakerphone, and Mr. Trump was congratulating him on the great reporting.
What was the article about Dr. Carson about?
Medical malpractice.
Did you hear Mr. Trump say anything in particular on this phone call with Mr. Pecker?
I think he was just congratulating David on a great investigative piece. Sometimes he would say things like, "This is Pulitzer worthy." I kind of recall vaguely in something that he said.
Was that the only time you heard or were present for a phone call between Mr. Trump and Mr. Pecker in this time period?
It's the most vivid recollection of everything I have. I think a similar conversation took place sometime a few months later, also just praising some of the reporting that the National Enquirer was doing. I think maybe around the time there was a story about Ted Cruz.
Do you recall what the coverage about Senator Cruz involved?
I think it was something about how his father may have been involved with Lee Harvey Oswald or something like that.
What, if anything, did you hear Mr. Trump say during that phone call?
Nothing remarkable, just similar to what he said the last time I overheard a conversation. Great reporting.
At some point during the campaign, did Mr. Trump become the Republican nominee for president?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
July 19th of 2016.
And so moving forward in time from July of 2016 period to the fall, were you still press secretary for the campaign?
Yes.
Had your responsibilities changed since the beginning of the campaign?
Just a little bit because we had more people to be helpful, so there were more hands on deck. It wasn't just a solo operation, but in terms of my role with Mr. Trump, nothing had changed.
So how frequently were you interacting with Mr. Trump during this time period? Now we're in the fall of 2016.
We were traveling every day for the campaign.
Describe for the jury what a typical day was like in this time period.
Sure. So we were based here in New York, and we would usually leave Trump Tower about 7 in the morning. We would go to LaGuardia and get on Mr. Trump's plane, and we could make, somewhere between 2 or 4, sometimes 5 stops in a day. Typically a couple of rallies, and then maybe 1 or 2 other events, like going to visit small businesses. Just getting out, meeting the voters. He was doing a lot of rallies, interviews, all day, every day.
And did you typically return to New York at the end of the day?
Yes, most of the time we did. There were some occasions where we were heading to the West Coast. It was going to make more sense to stay overnight somewhere. But most days we would come back to Trump Tower at the end of the day, midnight or something like that.
Are you familiar with something that came to be known as the Access Hollywood tape?
Yes.
When did you first find out about the Access Hollywood tape?
It would have been the afternoon of October 7th.
Of 2016?
Yes.
How long before the general election was that?
A month, maybe a little less than a month.
How did you first find out about it?
I received an email from the Washington Post asking for comment.
Who was the Washington Post reporter who sent you that email?
David Farenthold.
Where were you when you received it?
I was in my office on the 14th floor of Trump Tower.
Can we display just for the witness, the court and counsel, People's 218, and please display only from the middle of the page of 2 to the end. This is the document that has been marked as People's 218. Do you recognize this document? Tea break, thank you.
Pausing, tea break. Yes.
What is it?
The email I received.
The email you received from David Farenthold?
Yes.
Is this an exact copy of the email you received?
Yes.
Can we scroll up to the display email just from the bottom of page 1 and only showing that portion to the witness and counsel? Can we display the portion that starts with forwarding message? Thank you. Do you recognize this email?
Yes.
What is it?
That is me forwarding the reporter's email to other campaign leadership.
Is that an exact copy of the email that you sent forwarding that email? Thanks, Jimmy.
Yes.
I offer People's Exhibit 218 into evidence, consisting only of the portion from the very bottom of page 1 through the end of exhibit that I just displayed to the witness.
Subject to those objections we discussed, we have no further objection to the 205 email and the 129. Your objection is noted. People's 218 is accepted into evidence.
Thank you. Please display for everyone the email starting on page 2. Miss Hicks, is this the email that you just described receiving from the reporter at the Washington Post?
Yes.
When did you receive the email?
1:29 p.m.
Can we blow up that portion showing thank you? What is the subject of the email?
Urgent Washington Post query.
Can we display the third paragraph of this email beginning in the video? Can we zoom in on that portion, please? Taking a look at that paragraph that should be displayed on your screen beginning in the video, what does the email describe?
Just a video where Mr. Trump and Billy Bush are having an inappropriate conversation about a woman.
And does Mr. Farenthold also say in this paragraph that he's sending you a transcript of the tape?
Yes, it's included in the email.
So if we could take that down, zoom out, scroll down, enlarge the portion that begins, here's the transcript. Is this the transcript that you were referring to?
Yes.
Can you take a minute and read it just to yourself and then let me know when you're done reading it?
I finished it.
Can we go to the next page, please? Can we zoom in on that first half of the page? And can you read that to yourself and let us know when you're done?
I'm good.
Okay, let me just ask you, have you had an occasion to review this email before testifying today?
Yes.
Have you seen or heard the Access Hollywood tape as well?
Yes.
Does this transcript reflect the content of the tape?
Yes.
What was your first reaction when you received this email? You can go ahead and take it down.
I was concerned, very concerned. Yeah, I was concerned about the contents of the email. I was concerned about the lack of time to respond. I was concerned that we had a transcript but not a tape. There was a lot at play.
Did you also forward the email to anyone else in the campaign?
I did.
Can we redisplay People's 218, showing only from the bottom of page 1? Is this the email that you forwarded?
Yes.
Who did you send it to?
I sent it to other campaign leadership.
Did that include Jason Miller, David Bosey?
Yes.
Can you tell us who else you sent it to?
Jason Miller, Jason, Kellyanne Conway, and Stephen Bannon.
Who was Kellyanne Conway?
She was a campaign manager.
Who's Stephen Bannon?
He was sort of a co-campaign manager.
And who is Jason Miller?
He was helping with communications.
Who was David Bosey?
I don't know what his title was, but he was helpful, almost like a political director.
And in the email you forwarded, did you write need to hear the tape 1, need to hear the tape to be sure 2, deny, deny, deny?
It's a reflex. I obviously was a little shocked and not realizing that the entirety of the transcript was in the email. So strategy number 2 was going to be a little more difficult. But yes, that is the email that I sent.
Did you mean a little more difficult because it's hard to deny a tape when there's a full transcript of it that you already have?
Objection.
Sustained. Withdrawn. Did you do anything else after you sent the message?
I went to find the group who was on a different floor and talk to them.
What floor was the group on that you went to speak with further?
They were on the 25th floor.
Who was present when you went upstairs to the 25th floor?
Jason, Kellyanne, Stephen was there. I believe Jared Kushner was there. I believe Stephen Miller was there. Maybe Chris Christie, the whole group. They were practicing for a debate prep.
Was Jeff Sessions also present for the debate prep?
Jeff was there that day at some point. I can't remember if he was there when I went upstairs or if he came a little later, but I do remember seeing him that day.
Where on the 25th floor was the debate prep taking place?
In the conference room.
Can you tell the jury a little bit more about what happened when you went upstairs?
It's a glass conference room. When I got off the elevator, there is sort of a waiting area, but you can see into the conference room and everyone can see out of the conference room. So I motioned for Jason and a couple of people I sent the email to come out and speak to me to try to not disrupt the debate group. And obviously the sight of 6 of us kind of gathered, 5 or 6 of us gathered out there was a sign that, something was afoot. And Mr. Trump asked us to come into the conference room at some point and share with him what we were discussing.
Tell the jury what happened next.
I shared the email with Mr. Trump, sort of verbally, and we were at the time, based on the conversation outside the conference room, trying to get a copy of the audio or the tape to assess the situation further. We weren't sure how to respond yet. We were kind of just trying to gather more information, and everyone was observing the shock of it.
When you say you shared the content verbally, did you read Mr. Trump the email you received from Mr. Farenthold?
I read him the email, and I have a vague recollection of starting to read the transcript, and then he finished reading it himself, I believe.
Did you hand him the email for him to read?
Yes, that's my recollection.
And what, if anything, did he say?
He said that didn't sound like something he would say.
Did he ask to see the actual tape?
Yes.
At some point, did Mr. Farenthold send you the actual video?
This is where it gets a little fuzzy. I can't remember if we saw the video before it was published or not. Obviously, we saw the tape in a matter of minutes, whether it's from the reporter directly or when his story posted shortly thereafter.
So at some point, you saw the video. Were you with Mr. Trump when that happened?
Yes.
Was Mr. Trump upset?
Yes. Yes, he was.
Fair to say he was mad as you've ever seen him?
Objection, Judge.
Sustained. Was this your first reaction when you heard the tape? What was your first reaction when you heard the tape?
Just a little stunned. It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe. Yeah, it was definitely concerning. And I had, a good sense that this was going to be a massive story and sort of dominate the news cycle for the next several days at least.
Were you concerned about the effect it would have on the campaign?
Yes, it was a damaging development.
Why was it a damaging development?
It just didn't feel like the kind of story. It obviously wasn't helpful, but there were a lot of layers to it that complicated where we were trying to go with the campaign. This is the kind of pulling us backwards in a way that was going to be hard to overcome.
In those initial conversations with Mr. Trump and other campaign staff, did anyone else in the group express concern that the tape would be damaging?
Yes, I think there was a consensus. I think there was a consensus among us all that the tape was damaging and this was a crisis.
Were you concerned at the time about the effect of the Access Hollywood tape would have on the female voters?
In that moment, no. Maybe a couple of hours later, something that crossed my mind, maybe the next day, but just trying to get your bearings in a moment like that, there's a lot going on. Not in that moment, but certainly eventually that was something that was raised.
At some point, did the conversation turn to how the campaign should respond?
Yes.
Tell the jury a little bit more about that discussion.
I don't really have a strong recollection of that conversation, but I know Mr. Trump felt like this wasn't good, but it was also just like two guys talking privately.
Sorry, everyone, I need a tea break.
Locker room talk. It wasn't anything to get so upset over. Certainly he didn't want to offend anybody, but I think he felt like this was just pretty standard stuff for two guys chatting with each other.
And so, as you developed an initial campaign response, did Mr. Trump have thoughts on what the initial campaign response should be?
He did. He always liked to weigh in on responses.
Did you prepare a short written statement in response?
The campaign put out a short statement. I can't remember who prepared it, but Mr. Trump definitely had input on it. We were all working together in the conference room.
Can we display for the witness, counsel, and the court only People's Exhibit 313? Can you zoom in on the witness so the witness can see the middle of the page? Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is this document?
It was the first statement that we put out in response to the tape.
Is that the statement that you just mentioned as the initial response?
Yes.
Is that an exact copy of the statement?
As far as I can tell, yes.
And where is the statement? Where was the statement posted?
I presume on a campaign website and another channel.
Can you back up a little bit, please, and show us? Does that help you identify where that statement was posted?
It was on a website.
I offer People's 313 into evidence.
No objection.
People's 313 is accepted into evidence, whereupon People's Exhibit 313 was received into evidence. Please go ahead and display that publicly. Ms. Hicks, is this the written statement that you just mentioned?
Yes.
When was it issued?
Sometime in the afternoon. If I got the query at 1:30, the story was being posted at 3:30. I think it went out sometime between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, if I had to guess.
Can you read the statement, please?
Sure. It says, "This was locker room banter, a private conversation that took place many years ago. Bill Clinton has said far worse to me on the golf course. Not even close. I apologize to anyone who's offended."
Go ahead and take that down. Did you also record and release a short video later that day?
Yes, the campaign did.
That video is in evidence as People's 407A. Can we go ahead and display that video and play the first part? Is this the first portion of the video statement that you just mentioned?
Yes.
Did you participate in drafting or filming that statement?
I was present, yes.
Can we play the last portion of the video, please? Now, Ms. Hicks, does this draw a distinction between his own words and the actions of other people?
Yes.
And the initial statement we just looked up, People's 313, that also referenced the Access Hollywood tape as banter.
Yes.
Is it correct that those two statements reflect Mr. Trump's understanding as to the right response strategy to the video initially?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Did you have an understanding from the written statement and the video that Mr. Trump believed it was important to distinguish between words and behavior?
I don't remember thinking that at the time, but I don't think it's incorrect.
Okay. And around that time, did you also discuss withdrawal? You mentioned that you anticipated that there would be an immediate and significant media reaction, correct?
Yes.
What was the immediate media response?
It was intense. It dominated coverage for, I would say 36 hours leading up to the debate. At the time, I got an email in the office at 1:30 in the afternoon on Friday. We were anticipating a Category 4 hurricane making landfall somewhere on the East Coast. And I don't think anybody remembers where or when that hurricane made landfall. It was all Trump all the time for the next 36 hours.
The Access Hollywood pushed the hurricane off the news?
Yes.
You testified earlier that during the campaign you stayed informed about what other political leaders were saying about Mr. Trump's candidacy. Is that right?
Yes.
Did any prominent Republicans condemn Mr. Trump's behavior on the Access Hollywood tape?
Yes.
Can you describe any of those statements that you remember?
Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, sort of the usual. Anytime if there was anything remotely controversial, the group that felt they had to weigh in, it would come out and give statements. It's pretty standard, but these were particularly, sharply worded statements.
Who is Paul Ryan?
At the time, he was Speaker of the House.
Did he disinvite Mr. Trump from a campaign event the next day in Wisconsin?
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
I can't remember. It's a little bit of more nuanced response to that. I'm happy to share, but
Please.
I believe we were still invited to attend, but sort of the programming had changed, and it was a clear effort to distance himself from Mr. Trump with a new program schedule. So I think Mr. Trump ultimately made the decision to do something else.
Did Speaker Ryan say he was sickened by Mr. Trump's behavior?
I don't remember that, but it sounds like something he would say.
Oh my goodness gracious. Who's Mitch McConnell at the time?
The majority leader of the Senate?
Did Senator McConnell have a public response?
He did.
What did Senator McConnell say?
Along the same lines. I don't recall exact words, but disappointed, things like that.
Would seeing anything in particular refresh your recollection as to what Senator McConnell said?
Sure.
I'm going to display for the witness, the court, and the counsel the document numbered blah, 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 blah. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Please advance to the third page. Let's focus on page 3.
I see it.
Okay. Does this refresh your recollection as to what Senator McConnell said?
Yes.
What did he say?
That it was repugnant and unacceptable?
Do you know you mentioned Mitt Romney as well?
Yes.
Who was Mitt Romney at the time?
He was the Republican nominee in 2012.
And you mentioned Mr. Romney put out a statement as well.
Yes.
What was his statement?
I think something like disgraceful, disgusting, something along those lines.
Would seeing an article refresh your recollection as to what Mr. Romney said?
Sure.
Can we go ahead and see that and display on page 3, please? Does that refresh your recollection as to what Mr. Romney responded?
Yes. He said it was vile.
Vile? Thank you. Who is John McCain?
He's a senator.
Objection, Judge. Sustained. Are you aware of any other prominent Republican leaders who made any other statements? Objection. Sustained. You mentioned Speaker Ryan a minute ago.
Uh-huh.
At a certain point, did Speaker Ryan have a conference call with the members of the House?
I think this was a weekly occurrence. So yes, he would have them on a weekly basis, and I believe that they took place on Mondays. I could be wrong about that. But there was one Monday after October 9th debate.
Do you have any understanding of any of the comments Speaker Ryan said on that call? I wasn't on the call. Objection. And may I be heard at sidebar? Yes, please approach. Whereupon the following procedures were held at sidebar. I understand that there's a place and some of this type of evidence at this trial, which is why I didn't object to the first 3 or 4. My objection at this point is that it's cumulative and unduly prejudicial. So we object to further questioning the party on public reactions to the Access Hollywood tape. Your Honor, public reaction to the Access Hollywood tape is a critical part of the evidence in this case. We not only briefed it, but it's important to show the impact on the campaign. I agree. I think that you've gone pretty far along on this. What do you expect to elicit from this meeting? The Speaker of the House told the members of the caucus that they were free to cut loose from Mr. Trump and free to endorse or not endorse as they see fit. This is all hearsay. If we're going to probe that call, I would ask it to happen outside the presence of the jurors, and we don't hear the call. I'll sustain the objection, whereupon the following proceedings were held in open court. The objection is sustained. Did you speak to Michael Cohen around that time the Access Hollywood tape was released? I spoke to Michael on Saturday, October 8th. What was the substance of your conversation with Mr. Cohen? I was calling to ask him to chase down a rumor I had heard with a contact he was familiar with in the media. And without giving me any details at all, can you say very generally what that rumor was? Just that there may be another tape that would be problematic for this campaign. Ooh. When you reached out to Mr. Cohen to ask for his help bringing down that rumor, were you following up in part because of the Access Hollywood tape? Yes, of course. I didn't want anyone to be blindsided. I wanted to have an understanding of, what material was out there that we needed to prepare for. And what, if anything, did you ask Mr. Cohen to do? I asked him to call his friend of his and ask about the existence of the tape, and then let me know if there was in fact a tape and what was on it and when we could expect it to be published. Okay. And did Mr. Cohen follow up on that request? I don't really remember the conversation where we closed the loop on that, but I believe he did make the phone call and, there was no such tape regardless, but he sort of chased that down for me. In the video we just saw, did Mr. Trump mention, we'll see you at the debate in the coming days? Yes. When was the debate scheduled to take place? Sunday, October 9th. Was that the presidential debate? Yes, it was the second presidential debate. Where was it? St. Louis. Who were the moderators for that debate? Anderson Cooper, Martha Raddatz. Did you travel with Mr. Trump to the debate? Yes. Were you present for the debate? Yes. What did the Access Hollywood come up during the debate? It did, yes. Did the moderators ask Mr. Trump about it? They did. And did you have an understanding from those questions whether the Access Hollywood tape was a significant campaign issue? I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking. Sure. Did you have withdrawn? How early in the debate discussion did the Access Hollywood tape come up? I believe it was one of the first questions of the debate. And when he was asked at the debate about the Access Hollywood tape, how did Mr. Trump respond? He said that, he reiterated that this was locker room talk, just talk, words, not actions. You got it, Sharon. Shortly after the Access Hollywood tape was published, and without elaborating or giving any details, did you become aware of reports regarding Mr. Trump's behavior with women? After the debate, I think it was the next evening, Monday evening, we were contacted by the New York Times. They were writing a story about... Let me interrupt you there. Sorry. Were there reports regarding Mr. Trump's behavior? After the debate, yes. Okay. And was this around the middle of October of 2016? Yes. So how long before the election was that? 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. During this period of time, in the middle of October of 2016, was Mr. Trump traveling for rallies? Yes. Did you travel with him to those rallies? Yes. Did you attend the rallies in Greensboro, North Carolina? Yes. When was that rally? I want to say October 15th. Did Mr. Trump give a speech at that rally? Yes. Let's bring up People's 409B, which is in evidence, and we'll play a short clip. Do you recognize that event?
Yes.
Is that a video of the event in Greensboro, North Carolina?
Yes.
And are you familiar with Mr. Trump's statement on that video?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that in this period, Mr. Trump was concerned that these reports could hurt his standing with others?
Yes.
At this time in the fall of 2016, did Mr. Trump have a Twitter account?
Yes.
What was the username for the Twitter account?
@RealDonaldTrump.
Did Mr. Trump post about the campaign, about his 2016 run for office?
Yes.
Was that frequently?
Every day.
Did you read what Mr. Trump wrote on Twitter about the campaign?
Yes.
Did he consider Twitter an important way to communicate with voters?
Definitely.
Who was authorized to post? Withdrawn. Who was authorized to post from the @RealDonaldTrump Twitter account?
Mr. Trump, and I think there was just one other staff member that could post things that Mr. Trump approved.
Who was that staff member?
His name is Dan Scavino.
And he was authorized to post things only with Mr. Trump's approval?
Yes.
So, any language on Twitter post in this time period is Mr. Trump's language. Either he posted it or approved it. Objection. Overruled.
That's my understanding, yes.
We discussed earlier the response of some elected officials to the Access Hollywood tape. Do you know what Mr. Trump's reaction was to some of those incidents?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was frustrated, but again, it's not that unusual to have any of those individuals speaking out and saying negative things about Mr. Trump, especially in response to, controversy. That was pretty typical.
Can we show People's Exhibit 407B in evidence? We can display it to everyone. It's in evidence. Are you familiar with this tweet?
Yes.
Were you aware of it at the time?
Yes.
Does this tweet read, "The very foul-mouthed Senator John McCain begged for my support during his primary. I gave, he won, then dropped me over locker room remarks"?
Yes.
What does "then dropped me over locker room remarks" refer to?
I think it means he withdrew his endorsement after the Access Hollywood tape. Pausing.
You can take that down. Did Mr. Trump also post statements on Twitter regarding reports of his behavior that we discussed?
Yes.
Can we show People's 407C in evidence, please? Are you familiar with this tweet?
Yes.
Were you aware of it at the time?
Yes.
Can you please read what Mr. Trump said in the tweet?
"Nothing ever happened with any of these women. Totally made up nonsense to steal the election. Nobody has more respect for women than me."
Take that down. Can we just play People's 407D into evidence? Are you familiar with this tweet?
Yes.
Were you aware of it at the time?
Yes.
Can you please read what Mr. Trump said in this tweet?
"Polls closed, but can you believe I lost by large numbers of women voters based on made-up events that never happened? Media rigging election."
Take that down. One more. Are you familiar with this tweet?
Yes.
Were you aware of it at the time?
Yes.
Can you please read what Mr. Trump said in this tweet?
"Can't believe these totally phony stories, 100% made up by women, many already proven false and pushed big time by press, have impact."
Have you ever heard of someone named Karen McDougal?
Yes.
When did you first hear the name Karen McDougal?
November 4th of 2016.
Very specific. And in what context did you first hear the name Karen McDougal?
I received an inquiry from a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, asking questions about her and the National Enquirer.
Who was the reporter you heard from?
Michael Rothfeld.
Have you ever heard of someone named Stormy Daniels?
She was mentioned in the same story, the November 4th, 2016 story, and I heard of her one other time before that.
What's the other time that you had first heard of Stormy Daniels?
A year prior, November 2015. Mr. Trump and some security guys on the plane were telling a story about a celebrity golf tournament, and some of the participants in the tournament, and her name came up. She was there with one of the other participants that Mr. Trump had played with that day, was my understanding of the story.
Where were you during that conversation?
We were on one of Mr. Trump's planes.
Now, you mentioned that you first heard of Karen McDougal when the Wall Street Journal reached out about an article that you said was being published. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Where were you when you first heard about the potential article of the Wall Street Journal?
Also on Mr. Trump's plane. I think we had just landed in Ohio. And Mr. Trump was going to get off the plane and do a hangar rally. Well, you know, we don't travel anywhere. He just does a rally on the tarmac of the airport sometimes with the airport hangar as a cover for the audience. So we just landed in Ohio and he was going to start the rally. And I had received that email just as we were landing.
You mentioned an email. Is that how Mr. Rothfeld contacted you?
Yes.
What did you learn from that email about the story he was reporting about?
I think it outlined that there was a woman named Karen McDougal who had a story that was purchased by the National Enquirer but was never published. And he was asking if we, the Trump campaign, or Mr. Trump, knew anything about that.
Can we show for the witness and counsel in the court only the document that's been marked as People's 316, please? Take a look at that document and let me know if you recognize it.
I do.
What is this document?
The original email to me, my response asking the reporter to hold, saying that, I just got his email.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before you tell me the substance, can you just describe what this is, what the display is on the screen, without reading any content, please?
Oh, it's just an inquiry, a press inquiry.
Is this the email from Mr. Rothfeld to you?
Yes.
That you received on November 4th?
Yes.
Is this the exact copy of the email message that you sent and received?
Yes.
I offer People's 316 into evidence.
No objection.
316 is accepted into evidence, whereupon the exhibit is received into evidence. Please go ahead and display 316 publicly. Now, Ms. Hicks, you can describe the email. Is this the email you mentioned receiving on November 4th?
Yes.
Let's blow up the middle of the page. If you need a minute, go ahead and read that.
Do you want me to read it out loud?
No, just read it to yourself, please. Can we highlight that first paragraph? Is this withdrawn? You testified that the first time you heard the name Karen McDougal was when a reporter from the Wall Street Journal mentioned it. Is that right?
That's right.
Is this the message that you're referring to?
Yes.
And that's the reference to Karen McDougal? That's the first time that you heard her name?
Yes.
Who was with you when you received the email?
Again, a small number of people in the plane, and most of them deplaned very quickly to get to the rally. So I was sort of dealing with this by myself on the plane while the rally was taking place.
Okay. Did you tell Mr. Trump about this inquiry from the Wall Street Journal before he began speaking at the rally?
I believe I did, yes, just because I was worried about not having enough time to respond while he was speaking. So I did let him know that we had received an inquiry, and that I was going to try to chase down some answers.
After that, what did you do to chase down some answers?
I believe I forwarded the email to Jared Kushner. I wanted to loop him in because he was sort of overseeing a lot of the campaign operations at this point. And two, he had a very good relationship with Rupert Murdoch. And I was hoping to see if we could buy a little extra time to deal with this.
Let's go ahead and take down People's 316. Take a look at the top part of that email. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
It's my forwarding the reporter inquiry to Jared, like I just said.
Is this the exact copy of the email message that you sent?
Yes.
I offer People's 317 into evidence. No objection. Accepted into evidence. Please display that exhibit publicly. So let me direct your attention first to the first message in the chain. Is this that same incoming message from the Wall Street Journal reporter that we saw in the last exhibit?
It looks the same, yes.
Now, directing your attention to the top of the chain, Does this show that you forwarded the email to Mr. Kushner?
Yes.
And that's the forward that you just described?
Yes.
Did you also call Mr. Kushner after sending this email?
I did.
What did you discuss?
Just what I already described. Let him know about it and asked if he thought, it was worthwhile endeavor to reach out to Rupert Murdoch, who's the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, to see if we could buy a little extra time.
What, if anything, did Mr. Kushner say to you in response?
I think he said he wasn't going to be able to reach Rupert and that we should just work out responding and dealing with it.
We can go ahead and take that exhibit down. You mentioned you did some other follow-ups with regards to this inquiry from Mr. Rothfeld, right?
Yes.
What else did you do?
I believe I called Michael Cohen because I know he had a relationship with Mr. Pecker, and I wanted to see if he knew anything about this.
Did you call anybody else?
I believe I called Mr. Pecker's office as well to let them know that we'd gotten this inquiry and we obviously didn't know anything about it and tried to get an understanding of what was going on.
So let's take those in turn. When you called Mr. Pecker's office, did you ultimately reach him?
I believe so.
And what did you speak with him about?
I just asked what was going on. Why was I receiving this email? And he explained that Karen McDougal was paid for magazine covers and fitness columns, and that it was all very legitimate, and that's what the contract was for.
That's what Mr. Pecker explained to you on November 4th when you called him?
That's right.
Had you had any discussions with Mr. Pecker before that date having anything to do with Karen McDougal?
Never.
You also mentioned you reached out to Michael Cohen, is that right?
Yes.
Did you end up speaking with him?
Yes. I believe I spoke with Michael before I spoke to Mr. Pecker.
And what did Mr. Cohen say?
I don't really remember, but there was a reason I called David next.
I'm all right, Ruthie. I just am like, this is crazy.
I think Michael sort of feigned like he didn't know what I was talking about, and that we should connect with David to get more information.
Did you begin drafting a response from the campaign to respond to the Wall Street Journal reporter?
I did.
Did you share that draft response with anyone before sending it to the Wall Street Journal?
I sent it to Michael first, just to get his input while Mr. Trump was still on stage. And then when Mr. Trump came off the plane from the rally, I shared it with him as well.
And when you say shared it with him as well, you're referring to sharing it with Mr. Trump as well?
Yes.
After you sent it to Mr. Cohen, is that right?
Yes.
Once you reviewed this, let me know if you recognize that document.
Yes, I recognize it.
I'm sorry, you said you recognize the document?
I do.
What is it?
It's a draft statement sent to Michael and Michael's response back with his edited version.
Is this an exact copy of the email message you sent and received?
Yes.
People's Exhibit 318 into evidence. No objection. 318 is accepted into evidence. Can you tell the jury what this message shows?
These are the draft responses that I shared with Michael.
And you sent this from your campaign email account to Mr. Cohen at the Trump Organization, is that right?
Yes.
And now let me direct your attention to the top of the page. Let's zoom in on Mr. Cohen's reply. Can you go ahead and read what Mr. Cohen said in the email? Oops, hold on. Oops. Sorry, everybody, we're missing one page. We're missing page 2086. Oh, sorry. We're going to have to skip. We're going to have to skip one page. I don't know what's going to happen. We've got one page missing. Dun, dun, dun. All right, let's jump back in. And so, is that conversation you just testified about? He wanted to hear what Mr. Pecker's statement to the Wall Street Journal would be?
He wanted to have an understanding of what David had told me previously.
Did that include what Mr. Pecker told you about what the explanation would be?
It included his explanation for that this was a legitimate contract, and that's what they planned to tell the Journal.
You said Mr. Trump then had input into the statement, is that right?
Yes.
Did he ask you to include anything in the comment to the reporter? I think we changed the statement not to include almost any of what you just saw, and it was just the denial of the accusation in the statement, and they were totally untrue, and that we didn't know anything about this deal. Going back to the email you received from the Wall Street Journal reporter, did it mention any of the women in addition to Karen McDougal? The story was also going to mention Stephanie Clifford, Stormy Daniels, one and the same. So you understand Stephanie Clifford and Stormy Daniels to be the same person? Yes. How did you come to learn that this story would also mention Stormy Daniels? The reporter told me on the phone. Did you then, after leaving, that Stormy Daniels would be in the story? Did you have any discussions with Mr. Cohen about Stormy Daniels? I believe I did. I was very fuzzy about this point, but I believe I spoke to him. Did you mention to Mr. Trump that Stormy Daniels would be mentioned in the story? Yes. What, if anything, did he say to you when you told him that Stormy Daniels would be mentioned in the Wall Street Journal story? He wanted to know the context. He wanted to make sure that there was a denial of any kind of relationship. And did you believe that denying the existence of a relationship was responsive to the reporting? I felt that the point of the story was that the National Enquirer paid a woman for her story, and never published it. It wasn't necessarily about accusations of, certain behavior. Is this a good time for a break? Yes, Your Honor. Let's us take our lunch recess at this time. Jurors, I remind you, please, not to talk amongst yourself or anyone else about anything related to the case. Please continue to keep an open mind to the defendant's guilt or innocence. Please do not form or express an opinion as to the defendant's guilt or innocence. And please remember all of the admonitions that I have given you. Enjoy your lunch. All rise. Whereupon the jurors and the alternate jurors were excused. You may be seated. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. You may step down. All right, everyone. At this point, I will go ahead and pause. This is a great pausing moment. I put my little tab on here. I knew I wouldn't be able to make it through the entire transcript. So let's see. Let's see how many pages we made it through tonight. Everyone, let's see. Oh, we did pretty good. We did pretty good, about 80 pages. That's all right. I think that's okay. Yes, she has not sobbed yet. Okay. So I will have to say, because it does take me a little while to read through these. We still have her direct examination here, and then we have a cross-examination still to go through. So we will have to reserve. We will have to reserve it. I will have to do a part 2 tomorrow, everyone. So what are we thinking? How are we feeling about the testimony so far? Are we finding out some new things here? Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Sitting there whispering. I know. Yes, 20. I wrote it down so that I can pull it, and I will probably go back and start tomorrow on that page. So is kind of what my plan is. Yes, part 2. So I will start. We're missing one page. So that's the page I will start on. And I'll just make a note here to myself to start us back on that page on 2186. So we will start there tomorrow, 7 o'clock Central, everyone. This is the best time that works for my schedule at the moment. So I'll start there. We'll go back through, finish up her direct examination as well as her cross-examination. So I would like to get her testimony done before I jump into Keith Davidson's. Now, he's got some very interesting testimony too, but definitely everyone had voted for Miss Hicks tonight, and I think that was an excellent choice. So, yes, you're very welcome, everybody. You're very welcome. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. Murder on trial. Is that why Kushner couldn't reach him? Oh, that's a good question. It's a good question. I'm not sure. Oh, yes, the moderators, of course, are amazing, are very amazing. So, yes, so I will pick up where I left off. Actually, I'll go back a couple of pages. So I'll pull that page tomorrow so we can get a better picture going into the next set of questioning. Again, with Miss Hicks, I think every piece of it's interesting. We do have a bit of a fight at the sidebar, at the bench, we have just a little bit of a fight to deal with that does happen during her testimony, just a back and forth on some evidentiary issues, but nothing too big. So I will go ahead pick up tomorrow where I left off here. And then, of course, we're going to have to dive into Keith Davidson as well. So the second tape, I know, Gray, I was thinking about that too. I'm like, is there a second tape? At this point, anything's possible. There could be like 5 tapes and it's like hidden all over the place. We don't even know. They're like in Australia. We don't even know where the tapes are. At this point, it's very possible. Oh, we don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. Like before, like everything we knew is like all wonky because of it. Like, I don't think you get to just do you get to just call up somebody and be like, okay, that's why I think it's really nice that we can have other places like, the TikTok and various other places where you can get your information from. So we don't have to rely on these big groups of media that are owned by 1 or 2 people. So I have to say that. I just have to put that out. It is like a soap opera script. Yeah, we don't want the tapes. That's right. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's good, but also hours of tapes. Yes. Oh, exactly. That's right. And I remember him saying that too. Oh my gosh. Can you even imagine if that hits the media now? I don't know. I already feel traumatized with what we already have. But, I think it is interesting, speaking of tapes, how Miss Hicks, her response was like, how are we going to take care of the situation? She just immediately was like, oh, well, it's just, locker room talk. Like immediately was full on, didn't see anything wrong with it, didn't at any point. And in fact, it was counsel that had to say, well, look at all these other people that had all these things to say. And she's like, well, that's normal. They always say bad things about it. But she herself did not, throughout any of her testimony, say, yeah, that was really awful, and say like, oh, well, it happened a long time ago, but yeah, that's really awful. She at no point owned that. So I think that's really telling of where she's at. Appreciate your time. Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm glad I could come on and read. These transcripts were just made available just a little while ago. And I have to say, VC, thanks for the heads up on that. We've been watching all day for the transcripts to come out. So say hi to the kittens. I certainly will. But very interesting. See why I think she had a lot of stress here, but it doesn't seem, I don't know. We'll have to see what the rest of her testimony is. Has been playing guitar. Yes, I do have some guitar plans coming up tonight, everyone. That's why I don't have my big nails on. Very welcome. Oh, of course. Lack of decency. Oh, I know, Fran. I agree. So I will be, do I sing in the high voice? No, I do not. I don't. No. That's so funny. Yes, and thank you, Mads, for coming by. I will be posting on my Tube of You. Oh, thanks for the gifts, everybody. Oh my gosh, I've got to go get more paper too. But I tell you what, I will be posting to my Tube of You channel. So I've got almost all of Mr. Pecker's testimony that I have done up. I think I've got one more to do on his post. So I'm about halfway caught up. I'm just a couple days behind on my Tube of You, but I'm posting there almost every day, every other day. So this will definitely be posted. All of these lives will be posted up on my Tube of You. I don't edit it. I just run it straight through so everyone can just kind of fast forward, but have it as soon as possible. So yes. Oh, Cecilia, it's always good to see you. Yes. So I've got lots of them up so far, and I will continue to get them loaded up as quickly as I can. Again, I'm just a one-woman show here with lots of wonderful support, but I'm just a bit slower than I would prefer. So I will have those up as soon. Yes, I will see. I'm going to have to work on the crying voice, everybody. Yes, I'm going to start. Excellent question, Max. I'm going to go ahead and start on the page that was missing from tonight. So I can pull that up, print that out, and then we'll actually start there. So we'll kind of review a little bit, a few pages tomorrow, starting
back from that page that we missed. So we can't go with a missing page. That's unacceptable. So that will be definitely up and ready to go for tomorrow. So is there a link to the transcripts? I don't have one. You've got to go to the New York courts, and they're pretty particular about how they do it. So each person has to kind of go in themselves and do it. So I know, how could one page be missing? I know. I know. I think my cats may have gotten it. Anyway, I don't want to blame my cats for everything, but it's absolutely possible. So I will have this, up on our link tree. Excellent, Daisy. Love it. Love it. So I will be back again tomorrow night, everyone, 7 o'clock Central. And I will be back to finish up Miss Hicks's testimony and her cross-examination, as well as pulling that page back in that we missed for tonight. So I'm off to go play my guitar in the park. So I've got plans. So I wish you all a wonderful night. Thanks for coming by, everyone, and hanging out with me. I will see you all again tomorrow. Have a great night. Take care, everybody.